creates a vision. Sometimes it's something on the news or something I read in the paper that is very touching to me, and it creates an image immediately in my mind. I think all the materials have a certain quality to me. That iron is, you know, something hard and hot and cold at the same time, and that it's hot to be formed, and it's cold and kind of lifeless in a certain sense. It's also, for me, very violent and very, very strong. Wood, because I think of that grain to it. Although often it's covered and you can't really see it, it has a real life to it. And so most of the figures are carved out of wood and they have, I think, because of that, a more life sense to it. And I find it's even interesting in that the pieces that I do carve from logs have even more of a liveliness to them, in that working within that round space creates them to have a little bit more motion. The ceiling tin, or the pressed ceiling, is a real large part, and I love the really rusty stuff. I love that those materials have a real sense of history to them, that the materials are older than myself, that they've witnessed more. I kind of envision the rusted ceiling tin kind of looking down upon scenes inside of New York or Brooklyn tenements, and seeing children born and elderly people die, and fights and people making love and people moving in and moving out, and just kind of recording and absorbing this, soaking up this history that happens below them, almost like a hidden camera in a certain sense. So I really like that about the used materials also, and I think a lot of that comes from my interest in, again, not only in African but Native American ideology, and that everything has a spirit to it, and that spirit is something that has to be recognized.
Sometimes there's a wind in the Georgia dusk that cries and cries and cries its lonely pity through the Georgia dusk, veiling what the darkness hides. Sometimes there's blood in the Georgia dusk, left by a streak of sun, a crimson trickle in the Georgia dusk. Whose blood? Everyone's. Sometimes a wind in the Georgia dusk scatters hate like seed to sprout its bitter barriers where the sunsets bleed.
But most of my pieces are about secrets revealed. They're figures that have doors open in their chest to reveal what's inside of them and what their secrets are. One of the very earliest pieces I did was a piece called 29 Rooms, which was a portrait of a man that when we were children going and waiting for the bus, he would come out and he would just holler at us. You know, we were sitting on his curb, and you know, I mean, it wasn't even a house. I mean, didn't even really even have a house. He was just kind of like squatting in the space, but he was just so mean and ornery. And someone had said that they had spoken to him one time and that he had been filthy rich, and he used to boast that he had a house with 29 rooms. And so I made this piece of this man, and he kind of hangs up on the wall by the scuff of his neck. And he just kind of hangs there looking dour and sour as he always would. But his chest opened up and revealed this sadness of loss, that he had had all of these things and he had lost everything. And he was just horribly bitter and treated everyone else awful about everything because of that. And so it was his secret, that was his secret. And then the piece that the museum has, which is things man-made. So I've kind of put him opposite things grown. And he's this very kind of, very archaic posed figure. He has one palm out in terms of a kind of a giving sort of gesture, but the other hand is holding an iron shape that looks like a bullwhip to symbolize a bullwhip. And it's to talk about, I think a lot of the pieces are really about dualities of things, and this is about the duality of things that are made by man, the good things in terms of tools and things that help further mankind and humanity, and then the things such as weapons that destroy all of that. But what he has all surrounding his feet are all these different bits and scraps of iron that I've picked up here and there. So that's kind of like his food or his fuel. And then his body is pierced with all these nails and bits of iron and steel that I've just picked up and kind of just hammered into him. It comes out of a real interest in the Nkisi figures in Africa, where they serve a particular function that this piece doesn't serve, in that they're kind of hammering these nails and bits of iron in to ask the spirits to release medicines and ask spirits to remedy and rectify a particular situation. People see it very differently from the way that I see it, so that people will see that as something sad or something painful. Some people will see it as, surviving sadness and pain, in which I think is enlightening and hopeful in a certain sense. So it can kind of be both of those things at once.